Hey, everybody. Hope you are doing well. Our open forum Tuesday. Rhino, I don't know if you're aware of this, so I'm going to let you know
Yeah.
because it happened while we were all sleeping. Did you know that Major League Baseball opened up their season in the middle of the night? Did you know that?
I didn't know until after the fact, Grant. How about
Yes,
you?
that's correct. The Dodgers and the Cubs opened up Major League Baseball's season in Tokyo. And then they're going to come back home from Japan and play some more exhibition games before they start the regular season. How
Wait,
ridiculous is this?
wait. They're going to play exhibition games
Yeah,
after
that's what they
starting the
did last
season.
year. Yeah, I'm almost positive that's what they
Huh.
did last year when they opened in Korea.
Well, normally I'd say it doesn't make sense, but this is baseball we're talking about, Grant.
That's correct. This is baseball. That is 100% correct. You know what? You hit it right on the head. This is baseball. It's unbelievable to me. It just is. I baseball to me. Yeah, yeah, that's correct. Spring training will resume for the Dodgers when they get back from Tokyo. That's correct.
Well, here's the other thing, too. We talk about marketing all the
Yep.
time, and I think baseball does an awful job of marketing its
Terrible.
biggest stars. This is like the perfect marketing event. You have Shohei Otani returning home to go play in front of the home crowd, all the buildup. You could make this into an international series, just make it the big blowout, kind of like the NFL did with Brazil week 1. But no, not so much, Napes.
I mean,
Not
the
so
games, I
much.
believe the game started at 3 in the morning Pacific time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. By the way, if you care, and I don't, the Dodgers won by the score of 4-1, if you care.
Yeah, I would imagine if most of us didn't know it was the start of the regular season, we don't care.
No. All right, I'm going to ask you a question
Yeah.
that I talked about on my rant today. And this is the MO, it is the DNA of the Sacramento Kings fan. The Sacramento Kings fan is so desperate and so starved for a good team that they blow wins completely out of proportion and they blow losses completely out of proportion. They are a game to game fan base on an 82 game season instead of looking at the big picture. I would have thought that the Kings beat the 95-96 Bulls last night when
Yeah.
they beat Memphis 132 to 122. It is mystifying to me how much excitement there was over the Kings win coming off a 4 game losing streak where they got blown out in 3 games and they beat a team without 3 key players, including their star point guard in John Morant. And here's another indictment on how bad this season has been, or disappointing, might be a better word than bad. Kings fans are now resolved. They're now compromising what they really want and substituting wins with effort, grit, and hustle and all of that. This is what happens to the Sacramento fan base. When things go bad, they compromise and they see Jake LaRavia and they see Devin Carter and they see Keon Ellis and they see how hard they play. And that resonates with the Sacramento fan base almost to a point where it overshadows what the goal of the season is. It just blows me away. I mean, yeah, the Kings, was it a good win last night, Ryan? Yes, of course it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
But come on, keep it in perspective, would you please?
Well, and I think we got to meet in the middle here. We've talked about this homestand being murder's row for at least 4 weeks now. So you started off with a win, whether the team Memphis had everybody or not. I think you hit on a bigger point. I think this fan base is starved for basketball that is based around a team rather than individuals, that is based around effort, that is based around just the grit. It's what used to put butts in the seats when this team sucked. It's why you still got phone calls for years and years when they had losing records
Yeah.
because there was a standard. And I think throughout the last 3 years, that standard has been here sometimes, then it goes away. And then you see it again. You see a new group of players. And I think you blame the lack of direction too, as well, for this fan base. Because
100%. You
you
hit it right on the head.
you don't know what to expect. Does this mean that we're keeping our coach? Does this mean that we are going to blow it up? It is a day-to-day operation.
And that starts with ownership. And that's not going to change in the immediate future, at least. And there's nothing that the fan base can do about that. And that's frustrating because when you look at this team objectively, their direction has roadblocks all over it. And when you see what's going on with other teams in the West who were just as bad as Sacramento a short period
Right.
of time ago, like Houston, and they leapfrog past Sacramento like a speeding bullet. All right. And then you look at what's coming up in your rearview mirror and you go, wow, you know what? If Wembanyama can stay on the floor, how good is San Antonio going to be? Portland looks like a team that's not that far away, Rhino, from
True.
being right back to a contender. And I mean, not championship contender, playoff contender. I mean, it's frustrating if you're a Sacramento fan because you don't see that hope on the horizon.
No, and I think that is also the other side of the bait for Sacramento fan. When did Portland really start to blow it up? It was 2 or 3 years ago now, 2.5, when they traded Dame. I
Yeah.
think it was 2.5
3
years.
years. Yeah.
So now they're in a position, and everything broke their way too. They got the guy they want in Kling, Scoot Henderson starting to show out a little bit more. And you're seeing more positives in a quicker turnaround than probably what they expected. So I think right now the big thing with Sacramento fan is, well, if we
Yeah.
could have 2 or 3 years, then we could maybe do that too. And it's bigger than that because Grant, with the Beam team, we wanted to stay young. We got to get young players, young core. Well, now DeMar DeRozan was your key acquisition no more than 18 months later.
I don't duck questions, so I want to get to this. Liam says, Grant, why did you remain a Kings fan after what the ownership management did to you? You had every reason to hate the organization. Kudos for staying a fan despite everything. Well, first of all, I've been very open and transparent about this over the last few years. I don't root for the Kings the way I used to, and I don't root for them to lose either. So I want to put that out there. I do this show as objectively as I can. I'm not afraid to criticize. Either is Ryan, by the way. I think, to be fair, Ryan is a much bigger fan of the team than I am right now. But I'm a fan of you. I'm a fan of you having joy by being such a loyal, crazy fan who puts a lot of time into being a Sacramento fan, and you wear it as a badge of honor because you've had so many bad seasons and bad moments, and yet you still stay with the team. So I'm a fan of you. I've also been very open. My son works for the Kings, and so I want him to have success. But I don't root for the Kings the way I used to, and I don't go to sleep at night with a pit in my stomach when they lose like I used to. It's like not a big deal to me anymore. I guess that's the best way I can say it. It's a big deal to me to do this show, and it's a big deal for me to see you happy when the team's doing well. But other than that, it's completely different for me. I hope that makes sense.
Grant, we've hit this a few times, but might as well do it again. Do you think if the Kings don't make the playoffs, there will be changes to the organization?
Yes, I do. I think that there will be a new general manager in place, and that at that point in time, there will be a new head coach. I've been very open about this. I don't think Doug's a head coach. I just don't. I think he is a assistant coach who maybe down the road could take the reins of a team, but I think there are much more qualified, better candidates for the job. And I don't think Doug's done a terrible job. I don't think Doug has done even a bad, I think Doug's done a pretty good job considering the circumstances. But I don't think he's the answer moving forward. as the head coach for the Sacramento Kings. People are going to do, you have a bone to pick. No. It has nothing to do with that. I'm being as objective and as honest as I can. I said when he got the job, I didn't think he deserved it, nor did I think he was an NBA head coach. And here I am on March 18th, and I'm saying the same thing.
Well, and you talk about how much time you've spent with Doug. I've observed Doug. I've got to meet him a few times. When you think about his time as a basketball player, when you think about what he brought to a team, it was always the energy. It was always the hustle. It was the
Yeah.
little things. He wasn't the X's and O's guy. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you sit in that head chair, that's got to be something that's near the top of the list. And Grant, that head chair is just about managing personalities as much as anything.
Yeah, it is. And I thought it was very interesting that Doug spent so much time with De'Aaron. And when Mike Brown was fired, De'Aaron's message was, I'm not playing for a new coach. He didn't come to the defense of Doug. He didn't rip Doug. But as soon as Mike Brown was fired, and Doug was named the interim coach, De'Aaron said, I'm gone, which I found to be very interesting.
Well, Doug spent a ton of time with Sabonis, too. He's been traveling with Domas the last off season and a half. Luke Lauk's also a ton of time with Fox. So I found the player development and the relationships, and maybe there's something more to it. Maybe there's not anything more to it, but it is certainly something that, as you said, was interesting.
How come Wayman Tisdale received better respect being a musician and a basketball player compared to Marvin Bagley, who was also a musician? That's like comparing the moon
oh boy
to Earth. First of all, Wayman was 100 times the player that Marvin Bagley was. That's number one. 100 times, I shouldn't say that. I had no problem with Marvin as a person. 5,000 times better of a musician than Marvin. Wayman was a renowned jazz artist. Wayman was a big-time jazz musician. Okay, Marvin Bagley's not even in Wayman's neighborhood when it comes to musical attributes. Like the fact that you even brought that up, I'll tell you how embarrassing that is. I didn't even know Marvin played music. Okay,
well, I don't think he plays music.
Well, whatever he does, Wayman was. Google Wayman Tisdale music and look at all of the CDs that he put out. Are you kidding me? Like we're comparing Marvin Bagley as a basketball player and a musician to the late great Wayman Tisdale. Don't Wayman. I'm sorry that I had to even discuss Wayman. Please forgive me. Love you, buddy.
I bet you if you put some of Wayman's songs on for the fans and it was time to relax and they had no idea it was Wayman, they would think it was a Grammy Award nominated or that good of quality. By the way, really quick, Cavaliers right now stuck in a close one with the Clippers. Second quarter, 52-51 Clips.
Yeah, and I don't want to see the Cavaliers coming here with a 2-game losing streak.
I would agree. They're too good.
Speaking of like oddities, the Oklahoma City get Philadelphia's first round pick this year if it's not in the top 6. Okay? Philadelphia plays Oklahoma City tomorrow. Oklahoma City is resting 3 players, including SGA. Think about that for a minute. This is another problem with the league. This is the problem with the league. I mean, this is such a bad look for the NBA, and I'm not really sure. I mean, so the Jazz were fined $100,000 2 weeks ago as it related to resting players on Lauri Markkanen. Big deal. You think they care about that?
No.
That's not a severe enough penalty for teams not. Steph Curry, by the way, is getting the night off. Did you see that? He's not playing.
I did. Okay, let me ask you this. We are in now year 2 of the 65 game rule where you have to play 65 in order to qualify for postseason awards. How do you think that's worked out?
I think it's made a little bit of a difference. I think it's, but to me, the only thing that really affects is first, second, and third All NBA teams with the Supermax contract. That's it. Other than that, so if you have a bonus attached to being the MVP or defensive player of the year. With this, the money is already so significant. I don't think that really impacts a player. First, second, or third team though could.
Yeah, very much so. I think though it's tough with this era of rest management to paint people with a broad brush because somebody like SGA, most nights he's playing every single night. You get one night of rest. I don't want to throw him in the same category as Embiid or Paul
No,
George
no,
or
no, no, no,
Kawhi
no.
Leonard,
This will be only his third game that he's missed.
Exactly right. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's a problem, but I,
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, has the problem gotten worse this season? I don't think it's gotten better, but I don't think it's gotten worse.
You made a good point to me. I think I might have even been off the air, but you made this point on the air. That's the one thing Kings fans can take solace with. Their players come to play. They don't take nights
Always.
off.
You
Now, they
don't
might
take
take nights off when they're on the floor playing, but at least they have the uniform on and they're playing.
Exactly right. It's never been an option for this organization. You got to tip your hat to that for sure. Well, they needed to play too, other than that 48 win season when they made the playoffs.
Somebody says Bobby Jackson for Kings head coach. Would you be okay with that? I would have been okay if Bobby was named the coach after Mike Brown was fired. Of course, Bobby's the lead assistant in Philadelphia. I've always said this. I think Bobby has a lot of the qualities for an NBA head coach, but right now, where this organization is, I can't hire Bobby Jackson. I cannot hire Doug Christie. I've got to go out and get a guy that I know that's been there and done that. We can say, well, Grant, you just had that in Mike Brown. And I would say yes. And Mike Brown also was the reigning coach of the year only 2 seasons ago and won 48 games. But there are a lot of candidates out there that I think could be very good for this job, assuming that they do not give Doug the full title of head coach.
See, you don't think that it might be time to tip it on its head and look for somebody on the younger side, somebody that's an upstart and not a retread? Because usually the Kings get retreads.
Well, I don't think it really matters significantly until you fix the roster. And that to me is the biggest obstacle moving forward. And we've talked a lot about this on this program. What's this offseason going to be like? And is Sabonis going to say to the Kings, you know what, you need to get me out of here. You got to work out a trade. This is not working for me.
And that's why I feel like that is so important to a coach, because I think either you fit the system to the players or the players have to fit to your system.
Well, what's the system? Because when you had De'Aaron Fox, when they were winning 48 games, it was a track meet, right?
Correct.
Now, what is the system?
Slow, ISO, defense on some nights.
Okay. And you also have a system where defensively you're porous, even though you're better now with some of the players that you picked up. But
sure.
See, here's another deal. You gave up 122 points last night to a team without 3 key players and the starting point guard. That's too much, and the shooting percentages were too much. And I'm looking at the teams that are coming in here and assuming, and again, I keep saying this, assuming that the teams that are coming in here are going to play their guys, play everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You did a show on this. Is a 4-3 homestand realistic? Well, the fact that you won the first game makes it more realistic, assuming that you can beat Chicago and assuming that you can beat Portland. But why would I think that the Kings are going to beat the Bulls on their third game in 4 nights on the second of a back-to-back? Why would I think they're going to beat the Bulls? There's nothing that I've seen from the Kings that would give me confidence that they're going to beat the Bulls after they play the Cavaliers tomorrow. Why would I expect that?
Well, maybe you think it's a Levine get back game. Maybe there's some extra energy there. I do worry about the lack of rotation now that you have Sabonis definitely out tomorrow. I think that changes.
Yes.
Can this be a 4-3 road trip?
Okay. Would you also agree that if the Kings are to upset Cleveland tomorrow, it's going to take the starters playing upwards of 40 minutes?
There's no doubt about it.
Okay,
absolutely.
So then in 24 hours, you've got to turn around and beat a Bulls team who's still they're in the play-in in the East.
Okay.
And they've been playing much better. They're off. Why would I think they're going to beat the Bulls?
Okay, but if you exchange the Cleveland win instead of a win with the Bulls, then that means we're on the same track. You just got to pick up Milwaukee. Milwaukee's kind of the wild card game to me.
Yep. I do agree with you. I think Milwaukee is the wild card game because I think Boston's going to kick their ass.
Yeah.
I think Oklahoma City is going to destroy Sacramento. And I got to tell you, the Portland game's no picnic.
No, it's not. And Portland always plays the Kings. Very difficult, whether you like it or not.
Well, one game at a time, I guess. And we're still waiting to find out the severity of Sabonis's ankle. I find it odd that here we are in the evening, 24 hours after Sabonis injured his ankle, and there has been no definitive report on the severity of his injury. That doesn't make that's very odd to me.
Well, if we go, let's take this back to Beam Team year when he had the avulsion fracture, and we didn't know about that. That happened on December 23rd. We went through the 24th, the 25th, and then I believe news started breaking out on the 26th.
Okay, that and he missed one game, and he missed the Denver game, and then he didn't miss any other games the rest of the year.
But that was a much more serious injury that most guys would not have played through. It's not a sprained ankle.
It's more complex of an injury too.
Yeah.
If you're comparing it to an ankle in terms of whether you can play or not. Like if you have a sprained ankle that is severe or even moderate, you can't play.
No.
You just can't. Yeah, I mean, but you can't play basketball if you can't run, and you can't cut, you can't move laterally, you can't play. I mean, that goes without saying. The amount of swelling has a lot to do with this, but I also just think it's odd. Well, I would let me say it this way: if his ankle injury was not that serious, he'd be listed officially as day-to-day, and the Kings would come out with that and say he won't play tomorrow, but he's day-to-day. He's not listed as day-to-day right now, to the best of my knowledge.
Correct. And maybe there's some other things that are being looked at, Grant. Who's to say he didn't possibly get a concussion when he bumped heads and needed those stitches? Who's to say that hamstring still isn't in play? There could be multiple things they're evaluating.
Albert says that Sabonis will miss at least 10 games with a right ankle sprain, according to Shams Charania. I think he's going to miss more than that, but he said, at least. I think he's going to miss. Personally, I don't think he's going to be back in the month of March. That's my own deal.
And I'm okay with that, because do you think having Sabonis through this stretch significantly moves the needle in favor of the Kings being closer to winning?
No, here's the deal. It really doesn't matter what the Kings do until the play-in, because they're going to be in the play-in because the teams behind them are so bad. So you don't need Sabonis right now. And it really doesn't matter if you lose most of your games, because even if you lose most of your games, you're in all likelihood still going to be at the worst 10th, and you get a chance to get into the dance if you can win 2 games. So yes, I would agree with that.
So let him come back at his own pace. Now, the big question here becomes conditioning, Grant.
Yeah.
That is a big deal. Now, maybe it's only a 1 or 2 game sample size that you're playing with the play-in, depending on how you do. But you ramp them up when you return home for Denver, LA, Phoenix, and then you let them loose into the play-in.
Here's the other problem I have with this. Why is Shams Charania, who's very good at what he does, by the way, the senior NBA insider for ESPN, why is it that Shams has to break news on a Sacramento Kings player who was injured last night? That's embarrassing to me. That's the organization's job to put out a release on the injury of their player. I mean, it's just the Kings don't seem to do anything right. It's just a joke to me.
But isn't
it? It's wrong, Ryan. It's wrong.
But Grant, isn't it also how the Kings get 30, 45 seconds of national airtime on ESPN because Shams has the story?
Yeah, but why do you want 30 or 40 seconds of airtime on ESPN with a guy talking about a player's injury? Like, what is that good? What does that do for you?
Well, I'm not saying it's a great thing, but they always say any press is good press. Well,
that doesn't do anything.
The Kings do not get very much run when it comes to a national.
The Kings don't do anything right. If you really want to get down to the nutshell, they don't do it. They don't do anything right. I mean, just look at this year. Mike Brown gets fired, and it takes 40 days for anyone, in this case, Monty McNair, to come out and address it, and only addresses it after a De'Aaron Fox trade. Like, that doesn't happen anywhere else in professional sports. Doesn't happen in the NFL. Doesn't happen in MLB. Doesn't happen in the NHL or whatever the hell sport we're talking about. Baseball, hockey, football. But the Kings, they don't do it. Like, they don't make sense with what they do. Like,
they don't hit things head on. The bottom line is they don't.
Not. Thank you. That's the best way to describe it.
You know, who wrote the piece when there were concerns after Mike Brown was fired and the Kings were returning home? It wasn't the Kings coming forward and having a press conference. It was, let's give Ramona Shelburne the article. Let's give her the sources. And that comes out to try to calm the waters on the players so you don't boo De'Aaron. Sit it down.
Well, it all adds up to a losing team, a non-playoff team year after year after year, with the exception of 2 years ago. But that's what it all adds up to. There's a right way of doing things and a wrong way of doing things.
Why do you think the Kings need the 7-8 seed? And what's the way that they get there? Now
they're not going to get the 7th or 8th seed, so I don't even know why we're discussing it.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, the difference is you only have to win one game to get into the playoffs. If you're 7 or 8, if you're 9 or 10, you have to win 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
And the second game is automatically on the road, which is not a big deal for Sacramento. You could make the argument that they've been better the last 3 years on the road than at home.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the second year in a row, though, they are forced into this position. But I would say this year they're better equipped to deal with it than they were at this time last year, Grant?
At the moment, maybe.
Okay.
But you say they're better equipped. We don't know what the injury situation is going to be like when the play-in gets here. What happens if somebody else goes down? What happens if Sabonis is 80%? I mean, there are a lot of variables right now. I mean, Sabonis should be fine when the play-in starts in the middle of April. I mean, right now, there's no way to me that he wouldn't be unless he re-aggravates that when he comes back.
I don't know how this changes, but Bobby Marks reported that by tomorrow, the Kings need to have that last roster spot locked in. They signed Terry Taylor to a 10-day contract today from Stockton, which I am a huge fan of TT. I could do 20 minutes with you guys about him right now. Not going to do it because he likely won't touch the court, but very happy for him. The Kings are going to have to fill that void, Grant, and I think it's got to come from within rather than outside the organization at this point with Sabonis out, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to matter. You're not going to get anybody that's going to be able to help you. It's going to be a player to fulfill your roster to, have at the end of the bench. So I don't think it really matters.
Well, it kind of does because you've got Trey Lyles, who's been on the injury report consistently. JV is your backup center. So if he gets into foul trouble all the time, you got to have that extra layer. Somebody that
okay, so you have to have an extra layer, but is that extra layer going to step on the floor and help you win? No.
They might be forced to. They very well easily could.
If you have to rely on that extra layer who's not currently on the roster to help you win games during the most important stretch of your season, you're in deep trouble.
Well, I think I'm indicating at that in Isaac Jones, somebody that's a two-way that is seen out of the two ways the most time in the NBA this year. You probably got to bring him up for the rest of the
well, then bring him up, but he's not going to play unless he has to.
Yeah, well, you never know with matchups and
but okay. Are you like expecting Jones to step onto the floor right now and be a guy that helps you win a game? I'm not. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to stink up the joint. He's going to embarrass himself. I don't mean that at all. I'm not trying to imply that, Ryan.
Right.
I'm just saying, he is in the G League for a reason.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I think he is best suited to be able to step into a game and provide good minutes when needed out of what we're looking at. I don't think he wins you a game specifically. He doesn't give you 30 points, but that his athleticism definitely is interesting, though. It's a different dynamic.
I want to get to this real quick because this is an open forum show. We're talking about a lot of things. Bengals paid a lot of money for 2 receivers. Will the 2-star wide receiver duel work in Cincinnati? Of course it will. You have one of the top quarterbacks in Joe Burrow. You have a Jamar Chase and Higgins, which are phenomenal receivers. So you tell me, if you're a defensive coordinator, you can't take both out of the game. Your best chance is getting to the quarterback with a pass rush, which is what teams have done against Cincinnati. So, yeah, of course it's going to work. Why would it not work? I mean, the name of the game is to put your best players on the field that are really good. So if you're a defense, how are you going to guard those two guys? Like you can maybe focus on one, Rhino, right? With double team help. Well, how are you going to do that on both guys?
Well, Grant, they're so different. As similar as they are, they're such different receivers in their own ways, which makes that combination so special.
Well, I mean, to me, they're it makes them a legitimate team. Offensively, they're going to be really, really good. Speaking of really, really good, that's New Works Plumbing of Sacramento, and they are there for you when it comes to your plumbing needs and repairs. Give them a call. Check them out. You'll be glad that you did. They're awesome. New Works Plumbing, they've got a fix for you. See the information right there, or you can go to newworksplumbing.com, NEWWRXplumbing.com. New Works Plumbing, they've got a fix for you. And don't forget, tomorrow, a rant with Grant on the postgame show. Keep that in mind. I love doing the rants on the postgame show.
And we've got the 4:00 Kings Roundtable with Mr. Jerry Reynolds. That will be a fun show as always.
Or if you want to do it to it won't. Yeah, we'll do it at 4. That's fine.
You want to push it to 5?
Yeah, let's do it at 5, and that way we push it into your pregame, and then we just have a large. That way we can keep the audience and everything. Let's try to do it at 5. Okay.
Okay, let's do that indeed. Okay, Guru. Hey, Zach. By the way, I usually don't pile on when it comes to the rant monitors, but why are rant monitors on the weekends, especially at like very slow times?
I don't understand what you mean. What's a rant monitor?
A rant monitor. I guess we need one of those too. Ramp monitors.
Oh,
ramp meters.
You know what? You lost me. So I didn't realize you were talking about Zach. Why do you need them on anytime?
Especially.
Do you know how to merge onto a freeway?
Well, I believe I was taught that in driver's ed, and I did get my driver's license.
But regardless of whether the vehicles are going between 60 and 80 miles an hour, or it's bumper to bumper traffic, do you know how to merge onto a freeway? Because yes. I do. I've never had to stop, waste gas, accelerate on a large stretch of pavement to get into the flow when I was already moving at the same speed as the vehicles. And if I have to slow down, there's a thing on my car. It's called a brake. But here's the other issue. Yeah. The ramps are so damn long that doesn't make any sense, because you have to brake, stop, accelerate, brake to get into the traffic. It is the most asinine, stupid, ridiculous thing I've ever seen in driving in my 65 years on life. Although I don't remember what it was like when I was 1, 2, 3, or 4, but I do remember having no problem at all merging on to the Southern State or the Northern State Parkway, where their ramps were the size of a postage stamp. No, never a problem. Never a problem. Never a problem. Never had a problem on these interstates in California where the ramps are like aircraft carriers. Not a problem. Waste of money, stupid, and it drives me freaking crazy.
It's driving me crazy. You know what they are? They're Band-Aids to make up for very bad places to have on-ramps and very short straightaways to get in. You know the on-ramps where it's also an exit for somebody else coming off? Those are nightmares. Just fix the problem instead of trying to ramp it and meter it.
The term is a metered ramp.
Metered ramp. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for picking me up.
And all it does is piss people off and waste gas. It wastes gas. You have to come to a complete stop, and while you're sitting there for 5 minutes, then you have to accelerate to get back onto the highway. It's just stupid.
Well, it doesn't waste gas when you have your electric rental, Napes.
You know what? Oh, don't even get me started there. Don't stop it. Now, I was in a good mood. I was in a good mood. But we
Oh
do also
boy.
we also need a rant monitor on the weekends. That would be
Yes.
good.
Yes, that would be good.
See,
I used
that's what happens when you get older. Your hearing starts to go.
we should try to set that up. You remember in the old Arco Arena when the crowd would get louder, you'd have like the visual go up with the lights. We need that little rant meter to go up on our screen. I'll try to work one of those in.
This say it's another ticket scheme by the police. I've never seen anyone in anywhere in, I'll keep it to the Sacramento area, get pulled over for going through a light on the ramp in the left-hand lane. I've never seen that before. I've never seen a CHP sitting there pulling people over, because you know what? The CHP's got better things to do. All right. They know that's stupid too. All right. Can I speak for you, CHP officers, who I have a great deal of respect for?
Yeah.
You also know that's the stupidest damn thing in the world. And even though it's your job to enforce traffic laws, come on, you know it's stupid.
So I would say the most idiotic, dumb ticket that you can get. Well, I shouldn't say dumb,
Yeah.
but drinking and driving. Let's take that
Oh,
out
of
of
course.
play. That's just bad
Yeah.
form. Bad,
Yes.
bad,
Yep.
bad.
Yep.
Now let's talk about stupid tickets now. People that get tickets for being in the carpool lane. I've never understood that, Grant. It's pretty black and white. Just don't be in that lane if you're
Yep.
in your car by yourself.
People think that they can save 5 minutes, and they think that they can avoid getting pulled over. And then all of a sudden they see, a cop, and I watch it all the time. They're in the carpool lane and they see a cop and they try to merge real quickly, which is an absolute giveaway to law enforcement. They're like, oh, they don't need, they already know there's only one person in that vehicle. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Whatever. But
here's the other thing. You buy one of those nice, expensive electric vehicles. Are you going to be putting those carpool stickers all over your bumpers?
Oh my
I'm
God.
not putting that on a $120,000 vehicle. I'd rather ride without the carpool. Come on. What are we doing?
Well, I got to tell you, if I have an electric vehicle and it allows me to ride in the carpool lane, I'm putting a damn yellow sticker on the bumper. I don't care what.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, and then on the other side of my bumper, the other bumper sticker will say "Boston sucks." So you gotta balance out your bumper. All right, yellow carpool lane over here, Boston sucks over here.
Where's the Dallas Cowboys sticker?
No. We already know about the Cowboys.
Okay.
Boston sucks it's on my vehicle.
It's just ingrained.
No, in my car in high school and college, that I had a white bumper sticker in red that said Boston sucks. And I drove to Maine in July of 1978. And I drove through Boston with my Boston sucks bumper sticker on when the Yankees were 13 and a half games behind the Red Sox.
Yeah.
And boy, did I get abused. But you should have seen me. You should have seen me 2 months later, boys and girls, when the Yankees came back from 13 and a half, and Ron Guidry went to Fenway Park and won his 25th game against 3 losses with an ERA of 1.74, and Bucky hit the ball into the screen, and they beat those filthy, disgusting Red Sox, and then beat the Royals and the Dodgers to win the World Series. You should have seen me driving around then. Rivers, Randolph, Munson, Jackson, Chambliss, Nettles, Piniella, White, Dent, and on the mound, Guidry, 25 up, 3 down, ERA of 1.74. That's your Yankee lineup back there in 78.
Sounds like you could probably call the game right now off of memory.
I easily could. Funny story about that. Yankees go to Fenway Park and win the 1-game playoff. Keith Jackson's the play-by-play announcer, right?
Yeah.
About Wednesday or Thursday of that week, I go to my mailbox at my fraternity house, and I got a big manila envelope from my dad. And it's got all of the New York sports articles cut out and put into the manila envelope with a note. Grant, I know that you were at class and missed the game, so here's a little reading material for you. Love, Dad. Okay?
That is love.
The game started at noon. And I was in front of the TV at 7 a.m, because we had one TV in my fraternity house with it on. And I had my away Yankees jersey. And to show you how retarded I was, and I don't mind using that term because I am retarded, I had a Yankee batting helmet and a regular baseball hat that I would put on when the Yankees were at bat or on the field.
Stop.
Yeah.
You had a batting helmet?
Yeah, I had a batting up. It was a plastic one. It wasn't a
Right.
real thing.
Oh, I
Yeah.
got it. It was so
Yeah.
so you're kind of superstitious, is what you're
Yeah,
telling me.
I was into it, and so obviously there was no class on that Monday.
Okay.
So,
People
so that was my life back then when I was, an obnoxious 18 and 19-year-old kid.
I love it. He could have been doing much worse, my friend. People asking for your national title pick. By the way, before you
Yeah.
say anything, we have our March Madness pool up. It is pinned to my Twitter account. So go to
Oh, good.
@Ryan_in_Sacktown. It's completely free to enter. Fill out your brackets. You can do one entry, and we'll be giving away some prizes throughout. So go enter that and pick against Napes and myself.
Oh, I haven't even looked yet. I got to fill out a bracket.
You got to fill out a bracket. But here's what I would do if I were
Yeah.
you. I would ask somebody that does not watch basketball, that maybe has never heard of the sport,
Yeah.
just to fill it out for you. 'Cause
Okay.
those are the people that usually win these things.
Yeah, you know what? That's a very good point. I don't watch college basketball like I used to, so I can be that person because I don't know anything about college basketball like I used to. I watched the tournament, obviously, but I really don't watch. I watched Cooper Flag play a game against I can't even remember who they were playing because I wanted to see how good he was.
Yeah.
I think it was North Carolina. Now that I did, I watched a Duke North Carolina game. I watched Peja's son play last week.
He looked good.
Andre, he's really good in his second year for Cal after transferring from Stanford in the ACC tournament. It's always nice when Cal and Stanford can play in the Atlantic Coast Conference. That makes a lot of sense.
So much.
But what about you? Who are you picking? Or do you not want to say? You would just let people wait and see when they
I'm
go
not
online?
sure. Yeah, I'm not sure who I'm going to pick yet. It'll probably be somebody from the SEC. I do like Florida's size. I'm not sold on Auburn. I'm a little bit of a toss-up, but like you, I've not paid a ton of attention besides my Aztecs this year, who got bounced tonight.
Yes. Don't forget about Sunrise Landing in Calusa. You go to calusasunrise.com and you'll get all the information you need on beautiful Sunrise Landing. Don't forget about no Mellorews and no homeowners when you go and check out the website. And the location's great. If you really are looking for a place to relocate, I think you should look at this. This has got a lot going for it. The lot sizes, various options. The Calusa Golf and Country Club is right there. You got good access to the major arteries like I-5. Go to calusasunrise.com and check everything out at Sunrise Landing from Blazona Development. Again, that's calusasunrise.com and Sunrise Landing.
Getting a lot of love for your batting helmet. We're getting some football questions. Let's see.
Yeah, my thoughts on Rodgers. Let me tell you something. If the New York Giants get Aaron Rodgers, that will be one of the stupidest things that they've done in a while. That makes absolutely 0 sense to me. 0 sense.
Do we know if it's Rodgers delaying the process? Are we giving Rodgers too much credit, or is it teams just not wanting Aaron Rodgers?
I think it's probably a combination of both without knowing. By the way, all right, Zach, you're dying to know if you guys would blow up the team if you owned the team. Well, first of all, if I own the team, it wouldn't be my decision. I would hire the most qualified general manager that I could, and I would put my faith in his expertise to make the right decisions, and his occupation would depend on whether he was right or not. So Vivek's not qualified, quite honestly. Without being disrespectful, he's not qualified to determine what to do with the team. He's just not. So the first thing I would do, Zach, is I would hire and I would pay a lot of money to hire that guy, because the general manager of your basketball team is the most important position. Go ask the Oklahoma City Thunder with Sam Presti. You go ask teams that had Jerry West in their front office, the Warriors, the Clippers. You must have a top flight general manager. So that's the first thing I would do. When you say blow up the team, I'm assuming that means starting from scratch, right? You're talking about blowing it up and doing a complete rebuild. Am I right, Ryan? Am I reading that correctly? When
Get rid
you
of Sabonis, get rid of probably
DeRozan?
DeRozan. Yeah.
Well, I would say this, and it's a good question. It's a fair question. Being 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 is the worst place. Well, being 7, 8, 9, or 10, that's the worst place you can be in the NBA if you don't win the play-in. Like you're not a threat in except rare instances like Miami did a couple of years ago when they were in the play-in and made it to the finals, right? That's very rare. So if you're winning half your games or a few more than half your games, Rhino, and you're not a top 6 team and you don't qualify for the playoffs, that's like the worst position because you're not bad enough, Rhino, barring the fortuitous bounce of a ping pong ball, to get a top flight player like the stud. And you're not good enough to be a contender and a threat to appease your fan base where they're going to see you win a playoff series.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. It's purgatory. It's
Yeah.
basketball purgatory.
So if you're going by that definition, I would blow it up. Yes.
I think our definition of blowing it up is going to be completely different in the next couple years to come. I think these trade deadlines are going to become more and more active. You're going to see
Agreed.
more star turnover because teams are going to have shorter timelines because of the CBA.
Yep.
So, would you trade a star here, trade a star there? Maybe, but it's the draft compensation at the end of the day. Grant, that's the only way this team really takes the first real step to a championship is getting that guy in the draft, whoever it is.
Why and how can you get rid of Sabonis? His contract is clunky. Also, why would we? He's a walking double. I didn't say I would. I didn't say I would. All I'm saying is if you're going to change the makeup of this team, then that means you got to change the makeup of the players. I didn't come on the air and say I would trade Sabonis. I didn't say that.
We used it as an example of what blowing it up would be. I do agree, though, with that comment. I don't think the contract's clunky, but I think he is a little bit of a niche player. I think teams don't exactly see him as fitting in with every team. So what that looks like, who knows?
Hey, don't forget, folks, we will have complete coverage tomorrow, Rhino, with the pregame show. We have the halftime show with Jerry, the postgame show, and we've got our Kings Roundtable. We're going to shoot for 5 o'clock. That is coming up for you tomorrow, so hope you can join us. All right, I've talked a lot about Connor with Element Mortgage, and I've talked about his experience, a local guy. I've talked about how you can trust him, which I think is so important when it comes to buying a home or selling a home. That QR code will give you all the information you need on Connor with Element Mortgage, or I'll just put the number up on your screen. And I got a message. If you are a real estate agent and you're watching this show, if you need a lender who will work as hard for your clients as you do, Connor's your guy. He does get deals done. He will keep you informed every step in the loan process, and he'll make the process easy for your buyers. Reach out to him today and see the difference a great lender makes. Reach out to him at 916-505-1006. That's 916-505-1006. And do not invite him to an arm wrestling contest. Do not. Please do not do that.
Do invite him to do leg day, though.
Yes.
He'll do leg day with you for sure. Cody, oh, go ahead.
Is Connor going to be at the watch party? Are we having a watch party that I'm not aware of? If we have a watch party, he will be there. Yes.
Yes, we have not scheduled anything yet. I was in Green Bay this last summer. That draft is going to be bonkers.
Oh, yeah.
If there is one to go to,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, get to that one. It is going to be such a classic good time. Speaking of actually the opposite of good times, did you hear about Tracy Morgan, famous
Yes, I saw
comedian?
that. You got food poisoning is what they're saying.
Got food poisoning. I was talking about this earlier. There's nothing worse if you're starting to not feel good and
Oh,
you're
boy.
looking around
Oh, it's
and
the
there's
worst.
just no exits. There's no exit plan to
Oh,
get to somewhere that you need to be.
yeah, if you're at a window seat on an airplane with 2 people next to you and the fasten seatbelt signs are on because you're either landing or, if you're in that scenario, that's about as bad as it gets.
Did you ever see some weird stuff around the court? People having some issues?
Occasionally, yes. Not to a point where they really had to stop the game
Yeah.
and have medical personnel attend to a fan. I don't recall that. I saw a lot of drunk people spilling drinks onto the floor where they had to stop the game and mop it up. But no, not to something that we saw at Madison Square Garden with Tracy. No.
There's nothing worse than being the person that spills your drink in front of 18,000 and the
Oh,
game has to stop. The players
oh,
are looking at you.
it's the worst. Yeah,
The refs
yeah.
are looking at you. Oh,
I know, and I've spilled a few drinks on my broadcast table, and then I used to bring a I didn't used to, but they had a roll of duct tape with the hole in the middle where you could put your drink in, which would secure your drink because things happen. And here's the other deal. Basketballs sometimes come into our
yeah.
laps and things of that nature. And players sometimes diving for a ball come into our laps. And there's nothing you can do if you have a drink there. So then what I normally would do is I would just have bottled water instead of a drink.
Makes sense. And all that stuff you stole from the scores table. It was there. It's up for grabs.
What did I steal? Oh, yes, the gum and the Hall.
Gum,
Oh, yeah.
halls.
Yeah, I didn't steal it. I was an employee of the team. I was partaking in the fruits of my labor, okay?
There you go. Fair enough. It's closer than the press room, right? Making it easy for
Yeah,
you.
yeah. I mean, I didn't do it a lot. I did it occasionally. I mean, it's literally right in front of me. And here's the other deal. I feel with my beautiful suits that I was wearing from Bangkok, Thailand, custom made by Bobby at Rogers Fashions, that if I was going to get rosin all over my beautiful clothes from that damn rosin bottle in front of me, that I was then entitled to
Fair.
some gum and some halls and some candy. Okay.
I think that's a fair point. Would you
Right.
be throwing a fit if you were calling games now and they keep moving you back further and further and further away
No,
from the court?
no, no, I would not. And I'm going to speak about this and I'm going to give you an example of an interview that I did with Joe Buck. I don't know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I can't remember exactly, but he was on my show in Sacramento. And he had just done the Giants Packers game, which was one of the coldest games in NFL history. It wasn't, he had not just done the game, but we were talking about broadcast conditions. And that was the game where it was Brett Favre's last game as a
The
Packer.
pick.
Yeah, Corey Webster intercepted. Tynes with the field goal. Eli and Plexico Burress were great in that game, despite the fact that it was an actual 5 below with wind chill at 20 below. And he said something to me when I asked him. He goes, "You know what?" He goes, "My dad always taught me this." The late great Jack Buck said, "My dad said, don't talk about whether you're comfortable or you're cold or you're hot. The fans watching don't give a damn whether you're comfortable or not. They're watching the game to watch the game. Okay, they all would trade places with you in a heartbeat. So don't be talking about your conditions when you have millions of people who would absolutely love to be in the broadcast booth doing what you're doing." And if you had told me as a fifth grader playing pickup basketball at lunchtime at Split Rock School, where I was announcing the game and playing at the same time, that someday I would be courtside watching Michael Jordan play, or Kobe Bryant, or Magic Johnson, or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or whatever the case may be, LeBron
Yeah.
James. And then I would be then on TV or radio complaining about I couldn't see very well. Come up and shoot me, would you please? I always took the notion that would I rather be on the floor? Yes. Do I like being removed from the action? No. But I'm not going to go on the air and complain about it, and I'm not going to talk about it. If I happen to miss a call due to my location, I might point that out so at least the fans have a little understanding
Sure.
of why I missed the call, but I'm not going to complain about it. There are a lot of broadcasters now that go on the air and complain about their position. And I always said this, put me in the building. Put me in the building, and I'll be happy. I have a microphone in front of me. I'm announcing professional sports. I announced college hockey at Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, the home of the Red Wings. And I announced the CCHA tournament at Joe Louis Arena, which at that time, being 18 and 19 years old, was a huge thrill for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so far away from the ice. And I remember doing a game in Houston, Texas, with Jim Plunkett and Artie Gigantino. I did a Raiders-Texans game. That's the day that I met John Robinson in the taxi on the way to the airport and had a phenomenal conversation with him by happenstance. The Texans had horrible uniforms where the contrast of their number onto their jersey was very difficult to see. And we were in a auxiliary press box because the home team gets the network broadcast position. We were on the 5-yard line up very high, and I had to announce the game with my binoculars because I could not read the contrast, and either could Plunk. We were like, oh my God, this is horrible. But we didn't come on the air and talk about how bad it was. We just did our job and did the game.
Yeah. I love it. I wasn't thinking about like the ungrateful part of it. I was thinking about you doing your job. Being part of the action, I would think elicits a little bit more
Well,
emotion.
you have a monitor, and well, I'll tell you this, there were a lot of times I sat courtside and couldn't see anything because I had a referee and a coach standing right in front of me talking and arguing the whole time. So I would announce the game off the monitor. The challenge of announcing a game off the monitor is very often the cameras are on the other side. So everything that you're looking on your monitor is opposite than what you're seeing in real time. So you have to always keep that in mind when you're announcing a game in real time with your eyes as opposed to the monitor, because unless the cameras are behind you, everything is opposite. Your near corner becomes your far corner and vice versa. But after you do this for a while and you get experience, you know how to quickly go to the monitor if something jumps in front of you. Like there are some great moments in Kings history that happened that I didn't see live because at the Arco Arena, we were opposite the scorer's table. And the depth of where the fans sat, I could never see the corners with my eyes because our table was a little bit behind the row of seats. And what happened during a great moment, all of the fans on the front row would stand, which would further block my depth perception of being able to see the floor. So I always, in big moments at Arco, when the game was tied or what have you, where I always announced what I saw off the monitor instead of with my eyes, because I knew I would be blocked and I did not want to spend a half second of going from here to here and miss anything.
Right.
So tied game, down 2, down 3, inbounds, 4 seconds left from the near corner or the far side. Couldn't see it. Eyes on monitor. I would announce the entire thing to completion off the monitor.
You had the Isaiah Ryder shot from behind the back, like right in front of you then, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that one of the more amazing things you've seen?
That was very amazing. I've seen, I mean, I've seen so many amazing things. I can't even begin to tell you, a Reggie Miller 4-point play,
Yeah.
a Paul George 4-point play, like things like that to beat you, where you like, there's no way that could happen. Tyreek's shot to win against Memphis. I mean, there were some great moments. I mean, Bogey's shot to beat the Lakers, which ended up the shot to beat the Lakers around Christmas time trended all over the world. My
Yeah.
son was sending me like stuff of us trending with millions and millions of hits. Even Dwayne Wade retweeted and liked the shot of us. Like we got it. That video, which by the way, we were the only one in the league that was doing that, thanks to Mike Bird, our spectacular professional director. He was as good as anyone I've worked with, him and Michael Odino, the best. He thought of that. He thought of putting a little camera because he knew how animated I was, and he thought that would make for great TV. And we were the first ones to do that. Now a lot of people do that. No one else did that before us.
Yeah. Was there any athlete from a King standpoint, athletic plays where you were just like, wait, I can't believe what I just saw? Like, I'm thinking of Ronnie Price's baseline dunk. A lot of us as fans didn't see those ups coming.
Over Carlos Boozer.
Gerald Wallace's dunk from basically the free throw line.
Unbelievable. One of the great dunks that I ever had the pleasure of announcing. By the way, someone said there is no second delay in the monitor. No, because it's coming right from the truck. So it's instantaneous. There's no delay at all. Yeah, the Ronnie Price over Carlos Boozer, for a guard to do that.
Yeah.
Gerald Wallace used to take my breath away. But I mean, you got to remember, I did games with Dominique Wilkins, the human highlight reel, right? Sure. And I did games with Michael Jordan.
But you expect that from those guys. Ronnie Price.
Do expect that. You're right. And you hit that right on the head. You would never expect what I saw from Ronnie Price. Never. Like that baseline dunk against the Jazz and Carlos Boozer was one of the best dunks I've ever seen.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what a great person Ronnie Price is. He's one of my all-time favorites. Love that guy. Love him.
He was a good king. Great king.
There are so many people that I haven't even thought of that you just brought up that I just love, that were just great people that I rooted for when they left Sacramento. I always rooted for Ronnie Price. Always, always, always rooted for him. Always.
Yeah. And you've been very vocal about IT and his time.
Loved IT. And yeah, listen, most of the people that I've been around since 1988 announcing the Kings games are like a fraternity to me. They're great. And when we see each other, it's like no time has passed. Joe Klein is one of the best guys I've ever met, ever. I love Joe. I would never have to do anything in Joe because he has it all. But if Joe called me right now and said, I need a favor, I'd go, what do you need, Joe? Like that's how I feel about Joe. I love Joe Klein.
Yeah.
If I went to Arkansas right now to his Corky's barbecue joint that he runs and owns, I could sit there with Joe. I'd say, Joe, you order me what's the best. And we could sit there and just have beer, and we could sit there all night until the sunrise, and we would laugh, and we would share stories, and we would just have a good old time. Like there are so many phenomenal people that I've met. Reggie Theus is one of the great guys I've ever met of all time. That Otis Thorpe, one of the great. I used to golf with Otis Thorpe all the time. And especially on the road when we go to, after he got traded, we would play golf together in Houston on an off day before we played the Rockets, in Houston. And Otis would take us to this course, and we would have, and Otis just could hit the hell out of the ball. So like, these guys were not just like, these were friends, and the other part is, and I tell my son this now, we were the same age. Like I was doing the games where I was the same age as the players. Makes a big difference because you're their generation, and this was before camera phones and all that crap. Yeah. We would hang out together, we would eat together, we would spend time together on the road, we would go out after games together. Life is just totally different.
Much different. Everybody's putting their memories in. Randy Brown, he could jump for sure.
Love Randy. Again, one of my favorite guys. Randy was a tenacious defender. God, was he a tenacious defender. He was like a bulldog.
Got his run with the Bulls as well.
And someone was Bonzi Wells. I love Bonzi. Love being around Bonzi Wells. Funny guy, great personality. Made one of the dumbest mistakes ever when he didn't accept an offer from the Kings that would have given him financial security for the rest of his life. And then the following year ended up playing in China.
Whatever happened with Kenny Thomas? You remember he got the big deal, and then he became a restaurateur, and I know he was on TV for a little bit.
You know, Kenny and I used to go out all the time. Kenny probably during that era was my closest friend on the team, and Kenny would just always call me, "Let's go out, let's do this." I love Kenny. I'm a big fan of Kenny Thomas, and I don't know what he's doing now. I know he spends a lot of time in New Mexico near his alma mater, but I'm a big fan of Kenny Thomas. I love Kenny. Kenny always treated me well and always treated my boys well.
I'm going to put you on the spot because you've shared this with me, and I'm sure you've shared it on the show, but a very memorable year for Vince Carter this year, the anniversary of the dunk contest. He had his number retired in Toronto. His time here in Sacramento, you were pretty instrumental also in helping him get into broadcasting and had a different relationship there.
Yeah, he would come on with us. And I told him right away, I said, "You're going to be really good at this." And he said, he was very humble when you would talk to him, and he would pick my brain a little bit, but he didn't really need my mentoring him, or he had it. You either have it or you don't. And I knew he would be really, really good. Same with John Barry. I told JB, JB, you're going to be great at this, and so when you work with somebody, being around him for that short period of time was a blessing for me. He took Jackson when Jackson was drafted by the Kings out of North Carolina. He mentored him and took him under his wing and was with him every single day to teach him how to be a professional. Like that stuff that, Vince would do. Someone wants to know about Spud Webb. I'll talk to, well, first of all, you should go back and listen to my podcast with Spud. You can go to my website, ifyoudon'tlikethat.com or grantnapier.com, or you can Google Grant Napier podcast Spud Webb. I don't normally sell interviews. That's one of my favorite interviews that I've ever done, because he's one of my favorite human beings, not favorite basketball players. He's one of my most favorite people that I've ever been around. And the thing that I loved about Spud didn't give a damn what the other players on the team thought when we would hang out together. And I would also say this, in that era, you might find this odd, and I used to talk to Spud about this. I'd come out for practice, and all the black guys would be down at this basket shooting, and the white guys would be down here. And I said, "Spud, I got to ask you something. Like, what's that all about?" And he laughed. He goes, "Man, I don't know." Spud did not see color and did not give a damn whether you were white or you were black. He didn't care about your sexuality. He didn't care about your religion. Spud judged you this way. You're either a good person or you're not. And if you're going to be in my inner circle, and Spud was a hard nut to crack. Spud had a shield around him, and to become trusted by Spud did not happen overnight. Spud Webb, to me, is one of the finest people that I've ever been around, that I've ever met, and I'll share this story with you. I got to Dallas before the team. Spud had just bought and built a 7,500 square foot home on the golf course. I think it was called Thorntree in Dallas, right next to Tim Brown. Tim and Spud were dear friends. Tim Brown's golf cart had a Raiders logo on it, and Spud's golf cart had a Cowboy logo on it. And they used to go play together and race together. But anyway, Spud was so proud of his home that he was having the entire team over for the housewarming part of that night. And when the team landed, the bus was going to drop them off. They were going to bring their bags up, and then the whole team was going to come to Spud's house for a housewarming dinner. Well, I was with Spud earlier in the day, and he took me to show. He showed me his house, and he couldn't have been more proud. And then he went in a car, and we stopped off at a salon, and he brought me in to meet his sister at the salon, who runs the salon. Then we went to this neighborhood, and he goes, "What do you think that house cost?" I go, "I have no idea." He goes, "Well, take a guess." And of course, me with my California mentality guessed like 5 times more than it was. And he told me, he goes, "Come here, I want you to see this house." I go, "What?" He goes, "We're going to go in and I want you to see this house." And he didn't tell me why we were going into the house. It was his mom's house. He had bought for his mom, and he wanted me to meet his mom. And we sat there for, I don't know, 30 minutes. And I don't know why he felt it was so important for me to meet his mom. But like, I cherished those moments with Spud because he reminded me of my dad. Because my dad didn't give a damn what your ethnicity was. He didn't care about any of that. My dad judged you on whether you were a good person or a bad person. And that's Spud. And I love Spud dearly. And I mean this. You should go back and listen to that podcast. We had a lot of laughs. We shared a lot of memories. And you know what? If you don't like Spud Webb, something's wrong with you. And Rhino, I've told you the story about practice when Dick Motta handed me the whistle and he wanted me to officiate the practice. I go, "Dick, I can't." He goes, "I need you to referee the practice." I go, "Dick." He goes, "Stop it. I don't want to hear from it." And I didn't call a foul when Spud was going to the basket. And really, Spud, like, I'm not kidding you. He didn't talk to me for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
He went on the road. He didn't call me. We didn't go out. I'm like, "Spud." He's like, "Don't talk to me." And then finally, he goes, "Okay." He goes, "But that was a foul." I go, "Spud, I'm a freaking announcer. I'm not a referee." "Yeah, but that was a foul." You know, and I got clobbered. And what the hell are you looking at? Like, you're right there. Like, you didn't call a foul? I go, "Spud." So
Nate, Spud judges you on whether you're a good referee or a bad referee.
Hey,
Nothing in the middle.
if you didn't like Spud Webb, one of the funniest moments I ever had with Spud, we were in the Sacramento locker room about, I don't know, an hour and 40 minutes before the game. Rodney McRae, another great guy. His locker was all the way at the end near the door that led out to the park or to the cars. And Rodney mumbled, like, Rodney was very soft-spoken. Moses Malone walks into the locker room. So you got Rodney, who was down here, and Spud, who played with Mo. And Moses starts talking to Rodney from across the locker room. Like, not and I hear Spud laughing. And this conversation lasted 5 minutes. And Mo walks back out of the locker room. I go, "Spud, what were they talking about? I didn't understand a word that either one was saying." And Spud started laughing so hard because Mo, you couldn't understand. And Rodney mumbled. And I go, "Spud, I got to tell you, I didn't understand one damn word that was just said." And Spud thought that was the funniest thing in the world. And he goes, "Me neither. Damn, me neither." It was amazing. Spud was, wow. Did I have a good relationship with Gary St. Jean? If you didn't like Gary St. Jean, you had a problem. If you don't like Gary St. Jean, you have a problem. I don't know anyone that didn't like Gary St. Jean. Saint's the best. I mean, and his son Gregory is doing so well in coaching. I got a good, if you don't mind me sharing this story.
Yeah.
Gregory was like a intern or what have you with the Kings. Maybe like a video guy. I can't exactly remember what his position was, but it was low on the totem pole, right? The Kings had just hired George Karl, who was going to take over for the All-Star break. And I'm sitting on the bench about an hour before the game, and Gregory comes and sits next to me. And he goes, "Can I ask you for your opinion on something?" I go, "Sure." It was the last game before the All-Star break.
Okay.
He said, my family's got a family vacation, and we're leaving for Hawaii tomorrow. But I'm thinking of staying back and just being in the facility all weekend so I can get to know George, and maybe he likes me and retains me on his staff. And I said, whatever you do in life, you're going to be really successful with an attitude like that and a work ethic like that. That's the first thing I said to him. I said, Greg, I said, I can't answer this question because I don't know George other than just having a conversation with him or two when he was the head coach with Seattle. So I don't know George. I said, but I also would say this. I got to believe that any individual worth their salt that sees somebody on All-Star weekend putting in the extra effort, that has to go noticed, right?
Absolutely.
But I said, I can't. He goes, my dad and mom really want me to go to Hawaii. We don't get a chance to get together very often as a family. I said, Greg, there's nothing more important than your family, but I understand where you're coming from. I said, I can't answer this question, but I thought that was amazing. And by the way, if you look at Greg now, he's doing great. He's just doing great. I'm so happy for him. He's doing great. That type of work ethic gets you a long way in life.
It's that mindset. Can't teach it. Can't teach it.
So those are some of the stories. I'll wrap this show up by saying this. You're a family when you work with a team. And guess what? In a family, you have great moments and you have moments that aren't so good, right?
Yep.
And sometimes you get a divorce.
Yep.
Sometimes you fall out of favor with your parent. It happens. It's life. But you're still family. But sometimes the family splits. But for the most part, you're with your family from the time you take your first breath until the time you take your last breath. Most of the players that I'm talking about to me are family. Whether it's Lionel Simmons or Walt Williams or Harold Presley or Reggie Theus, or whether it's Dwayne Caldwell or whether it's Scott Pollard or what have you. They'll always be family to me. And if I go to Arkansas and hang out with Joe Klein, or I go to Dallas and play golf with Spud, we just pick up where we left off.
Yep.
And we laugh and we have amazing respect for one another. And I would also, and I don't normally say this, but I can tell you this. Nobody had a harder job in all of Sacramento than me when it came to sports. Nobody. Nobody had a more difficult job than I did. I'm not talking about hard labor difficult. I'm talking about situational hard. For me to be the announcer of the Kings and have a top-rated radio show on a 50,000-watt station for 4 hours every day, where the players, by the way, used to listen to my show because they told me that, where I was opinionated and was not going to bite my tongue and was going to call it the way it was, and then have to go back to practice the next day and go on the road and go to lunch or go to dinner. If you don't think that was a balancing act and a tough job, then you don't really understand what I went through. And it was really challenging when the team sucked. You heard the open that I did on December 30th from 2014. We played on a show last week.
We did just last week. Yeah.
Right. And I told about, Chris Granger calling me on the phone and saying, Pete's really upset at you and you need to talk to him. And then Pete coming out and screaming at me on the floor at the parquet and having coaches and players come up to me on the layup line and thank me for what I said. Like, if you don't think that was challenging, I had many moments like that. Like, anyone that thought that my job on the radio show was a picnic. Listen, I could have been like a lot of the other hosts on KHDK. I could have been a vanilla cupcake, but I wasn't a vanilla cupcake. I was in your face, opinionated, and this is what I feel. And that's probably why I had a radio show for 26 years.
I would also say your ethical code of navigating that and knowing what, being loyal to your fan base and your listener base, but also being respectful to your basketball family that you spent so much time with. You could easy if you wanted to make a name for yourself bigger than that, there's things you could have talked about, things you could have said.
And every coach that has coached in Sacramento has thanked me for everything that I've done. I told you the phone call I had with Michael Malone.
Yeah.
After he was fired. And I was on my way on an off day. I was driving to see Scott Pollard in Indiana from Detroit. And I had a long phone call with Michael Malone thanking me for having the balls to go on the radio and talking about how stupid it was that they fired Michael Malone. And we had a long conversation. And to this day, when Michael walks into the arena and sees my son, he says, "How's your dad doing? You make sure you tell him I said hello." Even to this day. Like,
love it.
Eddie Jordan. I can go on and on. Tyrone Corbin.
Yep.
I mean, I have this book that I have on my desk. Paul Westfall, that his dear wife, Carol, finished. And she sent me this book and wrote me a foreword to Grant. Paul so admired you. The truth you brought to your job in sports, something rare these days. God bless you for it. Enjoy the read, from his wife. And I said Carol, Cindy, I'm sorry. Those words mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
Because like I had George Carl on my podcast, and I went on the air one day and I interviewed George because we had the George Carl show every week. I had to ask him this question when things were down in the barrel. I go, "George, has this team quit on you?" That's the question I asked George Carl.
You had to, though.
I did. I said, "George, has this team quit on you?" You know, and George is a big boy. George knew. I said, "George, you know, I got to ask." He goes, "I got you. Just ask me what you want." And then all the Rick Adelman used to come on with me every week, you know, and Rick had immense respect for me, so much so that he let my son come on the team plane for 2 games, which was unheard of back then because we were flying to the Bahamas for the All-Star break. And it would have been, we ended the All-Star break in Detroit. And I'm walking on the plane with my 6-year-old son, and he stops and he goes, "Trent," he goes, "we have some rules on this airplane." And he goes, "You can walk wherever you want, but your dad has to stay in the back." You know, like.
It's so good. Beauty.
So, you know, like people ask me if I'm a Kings fan. The Kings are part of my fabric. Like the Kings will always, regardless of how things ended, the Kings are part of my fabric. It's part of my DNA.
Yeah.
Right. Like I announced the first game ever at Arco Arena, and I announced the last game ever at Arco Arena. Like I'm just supposed to have all of that evaporate from my body and like not take all the memories with me and all the great people I met, the players, the coaches, the fans. Like that's my DNA. Like it just, people need to understand that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people in this fan base feel like they know the players, they know the coaches because you spend so much time watching them. And for you, it'd be easy to sit back and just keep that stuff to yourself. But to give glimpses like this, it just extends that family that you were part of.
Almost every coach reached out to me after I lost my job. Paul Westfall reached out to me. Michael Malone reached out to me. Dave Yeager reached out to me. Many of the former coaches called me and reached out to me. And, you know, I'm not going to share the conversations, but they all thought that what happened to me was just absolutely so wrong and ridiculous.
Yep.
So they called me to console me and give me a pat on the back, but they also let me know, hey, I'm your friend, and you know we're still together. You know, and that means a lot.
Had to have meant everything, and out of the norm to have those coaches. That not just one coach, Grant. That many coaches.
I had, you know, Gavin Maloof and George Maloof reached out to me. I mean, I've had Greg Lukenbill reached out to me. I had, you know, I can go on and on. Like, again, we're family. Like, it's, you don't just like, you don't flush all of those things down the toilet, even
No.
though you're not with the organization anymore.
Absolutely not. And that's what makes this platform, you sharing stories like this, so special. It lives. We appreciate it.
Cody says Grant had used the All Lives Matter saying over and over prior to his radio show with no backlash. 100% correct. Yep. No issue there. We'll see. You know, I'm the next big thing in my life is my lawsuit outcome, and you know, we're still waiting for the federal judge to make a ruling on whether we go to trial or not. So, you know, we'll see what happens. But I love doing this show, Ryan. You know, we talk a lot off the air and how well you're doing, and you know, whether I do this show for one more year or 15 more years, whenever I hand the keys to the car over to this guy right there, or should I point this way?
There you go. High five. Wait, high five. There we go.
Yeah. Then I'm not worried about it. You're going to be in good hands. And I think it's amazing that Jerry Reynolds at age 81 still comes on with us all the time and does his thing. I think it's amazing that Gary Gerald at age 83 is still going strong doing the Kings. And I just, you know, the names that I mentioned, they're all family to me.
Amen. Wish you were going 81, 82, 15 years from now.
I thought I was.
Games too.
I thought I would. As long as I could do the job well and my mind was sharp, my goal was to be doing the games when I was 80 years old. So my number in mind was 50 years because I started at age 28. And I wanted to go 50 years and then go see if I'm still strong to keep going. It would depend on whether the fans really still liked me and wanted me. But I would never embarrass myself by going on the air. Like if I got to a point where I felt like my quality of work was dropping off too much, I would bow out.
Amen. Amen. You're the best. So you're special, man.
Thank you, buddy. Tomorrow, let's shoot at 5 o'clock with Jerry Reynolds for the Kings Roundtable. All right.
Absolutely. Gives him an extra hour to get ready. You know, he likes
Thank you for joining me, man. I just love when we're able to do these shows together.
It's the best. Thank you for having me. And thank everybody out there for joining us as well. We appreciate you as well.
We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye now.